Paul Krishnamurty, thank you so much for joining me on the other side of the world during this COVID crisis, pandemic that's going on. Thanks for your time.
No problem at all.
This is our take two at this. We had a few tech issues, which is pretty common in the Zoom marketplace, but confident that we've set this up better and we're ready to rock and roll. So let's get into it. How did you start betting on politics? So actually, sorry, you create content for us on the Betfair Hub, which we very much appreciate and look forward to reading, and you supply content for a number of different suppliers, and you've got quite a big profile on Twitter as sort of a political betting expert. So how did you get started in that?
Well, I was in gambling from childhood. I was a semi-professional gambler for 10 years, 12 years. And then in my mid-20s, I went to university, studied politics. And I'd never bet on politics at that point in time. But just as I was graduating, we had a general election, and it was just as Betfair had just come into being. And like the two great passions of my life just came together, and suddenly it was like, wow, I could actually gamble on this stuff, And back then, the markets were clueless. It was really easy if you're an expert. Now it's a lot bigger and a lot more sophisticated.
And so Betfair, I should know when it started. I'm guessing it was about 2000.
2001.
2001. Thank you. And before that, you were like betting at the different bookies over there in the retail shops, or were you betting?
Yeah, I was betting in shops on every sport you can imagine. And I used to take bets off all my friends. I was a school bookie, and then I was just someone who would lay a bet in running to anybody at any time. And then I went to university after that. Yeah.
So yeah, you've obviously had the bug from a very young age. When did what did you study at university? Is that relevant to any of your
politics?
Bets?
Politics.
Oh, right, there you go. Well, that makes a lot of sense.
That was it.
And then after university, did you pursue politics or did you pursue betting?
No, I went to work in the racing channel at SIS. So I was journalism, writing horse racing reviews and reports, and the politics was just a passion, really. And then I turned professional, was a professional gambler in 2003.
Wow.
So, and I was mostly focused on golf, cricket, snooker. They're still my main things.
Yeah.
But then, political betting got bigger and bigger. And so, now that's on a par with those sports.
Right. So you bet equally across those three sports, and politics is your profession, really betting on those all the time.
Yeah, cricket's probably number one.
Wow. Okay. And short format cricket or just tests, everything?
Any. Favourite would be 50 overs. It's not on as often as I'd like.
I haven't heard that before. I feel like people either like the really long or the really short format. You're in the middle.
Yeah, it's about time. I mean, I love a test match, but it is a hell of a commitment, isn't it, to watch that for 4 or 5 days? Yeah. Whereas, I'm just happy to give one whole day to the thing completely.
Yeah, nice. And so the principles that you apply to each sport, are they very different? Is it your knowledge of the sport, or are you just a trader? You can see momentum. What's sort of your edge in terms of betting?
It's definitely about knowledge. If you haven't got the knowledge, I think it's really, really hard.
Specific to each sport, yeah?
Yes, specific to each sport. And then you're utilising that knowledge in terms of like understanding how the market's going to develop. So you're always trading in and out. I mean, I guess obviously like any trader, you're generally backing high, laying low. Yep. That's the general plan. And with something like cricket, though, that's perfect because the nature of the sport is dramatic swings. Likewise, golf. Yep. But I mean, equally, with a sport like golf and cricket for that matter, it's so much of it is there in the stats. It's knowing the ground, it's knowing the players, it's knowing the conditions, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So you've been doing that for decades now. Was cricket the first sport you got into?
I was probably the first sport I was into was probably horse racing and football. And, I still like a bet on the horses. It's just a very time-consuming thing to make a living out of. I'm not saying I couldn't do it, but it takes a lot more time to research. Football, I just don't know how to win on it. I can't. I've never managed it.
It's a pretty tough. The amount of money, particularly on Betfair, is just sort of insane. So yeah, golf's something that I love betting on. Is that something that you sort of bet pre-play just with the futures, the win market, or are you just knowing courses and betting in and out?
Both, really. More recently, I've been more into pre-tournament, but I do certainly on the majors, or on the ones where I'm guaranteed to get virtually live pictures. I'm going to bet live in running, but a lot of the time I'll bet in between rounds.
Right. Okay.
I'll have my bets start around, leave it, update the trade at the end of the day.
Yeah. And how statistically heavy is your betting to know that you know someone's not out of it if they've started the first round poorly and they might be, you know, par, a couple shots off the lead. How do you distinguish between finding your bets in between rounds?
Well, one really good thing I think to do is to look at the trajectory of past tournaments on that course. So you get a course like, say, St Andrews, right? St Andrews is a front runner's course. You just can't play catch up there because there's not enough birdie holes. You know, everyone birdies the same holes. Same thing applies to Augusta. So you would need to be right up with a pace on them. But then there's other tracks like, say, River Highlands that hosts the Travellers Championship. Always take on the front runners there. You know, someone's 7 back at halfway, you might find a bit of value there because that could just change so quickly. Yeah,
right. So that's sort of something that you pay a lot of attention to, is the history and you know, going back 10 years of what's happened over, you know, the course of a tournament.
Absolutely. And you can see there's normally an explanation for it in the nature of the holes. As I say, you know, you get a course like St Andrews where all the birdies are made on the same holes.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's a whole load of holes where it's par's a really good score.
Yeah. And golf's such a pretty good data-rich sport. Is that one of the reasons that you can play your trade there? Is you can find out, you know, the conditions that were played 4 or 5 years ago at a particular event?
Very easily, that's right. Just like cricket, you know, that's the difference with something like horse racing. You'd have to literally do it every single day. You'd have to do your research, watch old races, check the card. With a golf tour, with a cricket tour, it stays in your head for years, and you're actually just going online for half an hour before an event, and you can just do everything, you know, and come out knowing everything that you need to know.
And are you, with your golf betting, are you loyal to a few particular players? Is it a momentum-based thing in terms of recent form, or?
Nowadays, it's more about the individual course and the individual skills. I'm not going to say, back in the day, I've certainly had my favourites. And you've always got players that you think are ahead of the, you know, they're a bit under the curve.
Yeah.
But I find golf these days at the top of the market very, very hard. There's just so many good players.
Yeah.
Right. You know, there's 20 every week. You know, if one of them has a good week with a putter, they're going to win. So I'm more into kind of like finding a value outsider. So just like in recent months, 2 players that I like are Nate Lashley and Taylor Gooch. I just think they're underestimated. They're good ball strikers. They're good approach players, and that's generally going to get you a long way in the game because you're going to have a good week with a putter sometimes.
Yeah.
But, you know, generally speaking, it will be more a case of seeing who's got the best form on those greens or knowing what the correct stat to follow in that particular tournament is.
Mm-hmm. So do you try and, in terms of leading up to a tournament, do you look at is it really important their history at that particular course previously, or more about finding how they've gone at similar courses recently, or both?
Both, yeah, both. And generally speaking, there's an explanation as to why, because those courses reward, for example, good wedge play, or good long irons, or they're on Bermuda greens. So you're just getting all of those angles, putting them all together and gradually whittling down a short list. And you're going to end up, generally I'll end up on a Tuesday or Wednesday with 10, 15 potential bets. Yeah. And then you're cutting it down to 4 or 5 maybe. Yeah.
Depending on the price in the market and what's going on.
Exactly, yeah.
And they're all just to win? I'm so curious because I normally play win betting, sort of exclusively pre-play win with my golf, and just sort of ride out the pain and the agony of someone getting rolled after they're leading and trading at about $3. But anyway, that's part of the joy.
I like a bit of each way, actually, because, especially with Betfair, because, well, not necessarily just win and place, in that very often the win odds are like 3 times better than they are on the high street for some of these outsiders, like a Nate Lashley, for example. Very often it'll be 150s or something on the high street. You get 400 on win only. So you take the 400, but then I've got to have a cover on a top 10 with that at 14s or something, 15.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, good to know. And when's golf coming back? Have they confirmed?
Of June the 21st, I believe, or there or thereabouts.
Yeah.
Colonial.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was.
Schwab.
That's good.